All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Mark, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
All right, let's say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this moment, I would accept a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Birdie
Birdie moving. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All right, all those in favor? Aye, opposed? Moving on to financial reports, Mr. Delikowski.
You will, and I don't know what colors yours are, but the board revenue report. So you're gonna notice we're trying to, we'll say on the front, yeah, blue. We got blue, so revenues and cash receipts, we'll start with those. Checks is huge, and cash receipts are gray, blue and gray, perfect. What you're gonna notice more than anything else, and really the only thing you're gonna notice is, as in every January, our tax payments, our first initial tax payments are starting to come in. So we did receive those amounts. I'd like to remind the board that this is why we need a fund balance, because up until January, we are operating on our balance because we don't get paid. We have to pay our staff and our teachers and our benefits and buy our curriculum from August through December, but we really don't get our first actual payments until January. So that's why it's so important we have a fund balance. And that's really, other than the little stuff, what you're gonna notice is a lot of, the only thing I noticed that was interesting was a lot of our tax payments started coming in. So that is in the revenues and receipts. I'm gonna just glance at revenues because there was a couple of things that I wanted, that I did ask Cindy about for my sake. Something that was like a 700, what's going on there? No, we did get, some of our aides did, like sparsity aid came in, so this is the time of year where we're actually sitting, we're cash flush, which is nice. But still, you'll notice that what we're budgeted in and budgeted out, we're still, at that point where we're being careful. So,
Tell us about federal grants.
oh yes, this is a good time to bring up that you may have heard today that our president sent a memo stopping payment on all federal grants to schools, as of 5 p.m. today. The, politics aside, that's obviously bad news for schools. The good news is all of those payments are already approved by the U.S. Congress. So at least for this year, we should still receive our $250,000 to $300,000 that we've already budgeted and spent, knowing that we would get it. So it would be very bad for us if that memo became actual.
So you're confident that even though he said everything's frozen, just because you think it's approved, you're just gonna pay it?
I am hopeful
I don't think so.
that law trumps memos. No pun intended.
There's all sorts of legal challenges to it already.
And the memo, we did receive a memo from Boardman Clark Law Firm that said, at this time, we want you to know that the U.S. congressional law for this school year is already in place. The funds have already been allocated for Title I, Title II, Title V, all of our title funds. So, confident? Hopeful, Mr. Cummings. All right, board expenses is again, the broad expenses.
I got a question on the revenue.
Oh, sure.
Why is there 2 or 3 for each of the things on there?
On the revenues
On the
or
board,
cash receipts?
on the board revenue report.
Yep.
Why is there 2 or 3? I mean,
Entries for each
Kind
one.
of like operating transfers in.
Sure. So
Times
I'm
three.
guessing,
Yeah, but it looks like the same thing.
Right.
yeah,
But I'm
Like
just-
right here,
yep,
like community service fee,
Community
it's all
service fee.
25, 25, 25, it's there 3 times.
and I think it's because what it does in Skyward, and again, this is a guess, cause this isn't a program that I run, but it's basically payments in, total payments in, and then grand total, which is almost in every case the same exact thing. So maybe that's something Cindy can take out. This is all part of the new Hume programming, through Skyward. So remember last month, it was really clunky?
It was really messy.
Yeah, she tried to make it less clunky for you this time, but learning how to print all those reports and to remove information that isn't necessary is a lot of learning. It's a huge learning curve.
Oh, yeah,
Jody can attest to it.
it's even like pupils,
Yeah.
breakfasts.
Yeah, there's two, sometimes three. So I'm guessing it's just like, you got a payment for $10 this week, so the total payments was this much, so the grand total is this much. and they're all the same.
The last item, for example, 50 pupils, you've got about 8 different ones. The last one is the total of all of
All,
them.
Right.
yeah.
So that's what I'm guessing, that's what it normally is, where it totals it out. Alright,
Pupil adjustment, pupil adjustment.
checks, I'll save checks for last because that's always the fun one. But the total expenses are looking for the most part pretty good in that 40% range, somewhere from 35 to 70% depending on what it is. Typically, if more is spent, like on page 2, and we talked about this a lot, but for the public, if they're new tonight, if something's spent out almost 100%, it's probably because it was a fall sport, or it's something or it was curriculum purchases that were already done, or it was insurance payments we talked about a lot, where we pay those right at the beginning of the year. So other than those items, I didn't see anything glaring. And again, you might get nervous when you get to the E-rate filing was the only one on page 4 in Fund 10 that I went to Cindy's office and said, that's not right. So the E-rate filing fee is $1,200. We budgeted $1,200. It was $1,200. We paid $1,200. We also paid $7,448.20 for last fiscal year's E-rate, and which was our portion of $117,000 in purchases for servers and software and all of the stuff that we get through our federal E-rate grant. So our portion is, we pay about the $7,500. Somehow it got put in the filing number instead of into technology where it belongs. So that's why that's at 720%. That 7,400 needs to get moved. Yep. So the rest are Fund 21s and 27s. So those are really just, you just budget the opening amount. But checks, which is usually the most interesting, and changes in the
Okay,
yes,
so back to this new format.
yeah,
Once all the bugs are worked out, you think it's gonna be better than the?
yes,
Okay.
yep.
Easier?
The expense and the checks, I'm already liking better. It seems
Okay.
easier to read for me.
Okay.
The checks, as far as I'm concerned, that's,
Left better?
no, it doesn't
explain.
do what we're supposed to do. It says who they paid,
Yep,
and it said how much. It doesn't say what it's for.
right.
And you look like I've down here, Russ Davis Wholesale Incorporated, $30,784. What's it for?
Right,
You know, we're supposed to see this stuff.
right. Yeah, you're saying that needs more description
Very much so.
than the
That's
name.
what I've been saying.
Yeah, not just the code there.
Well, the name on the check is probably, so we need to find, so run description, that's different.
Oh, okay.
I mean-
More description,
I mean, there's some stuff we can guess, but
yeah.
I mean, that's not how it's supposed to be.
I don't know if that would be we would have to make sure that's in Skyward, like Russ Davis Wholesale Incorporated, that's for the fruit sale.
There's gotta be something in there.
Yeah, I don't know, Jim.
Because.
I don't know if there is, there doesn't have to be, but there might be.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering,
Yeah.
because when you pay the check, you don't necessarily always, like in your personal checking, I don't always use the memo line. So I don't know if that's something we'd have to add in, like if you have to memo on every payment.
If you paid somebody $30,000, your wife's gonna ask you what it's for.
Right, and Russ Davis Wholesale, in their
And that's what
world,
we're asking.
yeah,
is,
yep,
What was that for?
yes, fruit, the FFA fruit. But I'm wondering if,
121,824 doesn't tell us nothing.
no, I'm telling you fruit. So
Right.
Russ Davis Wholesale is fruit, but I'm wondering if you can in this program, this is the question we need to answer, add memo lines.
Can I get Skyward's number to ask him, cause I was gonna ask him down there
Well, you
and,
can come look at my computer.
Yeah, why don't you just pop in
Okay.
and
Yeah.
ask Cindy?
well, I was gonna
First.
ask them down there about it, because last month, you know, it wasn't.
You can't
great
call
either.
Skyward and ask. We can't even call Skyward. We have to put in a ticket, and then somebody will call us back.
Okay,
It
so I
takes up
screwed
to
up, I should've got a hold of
between
him
3 to
and
5
asked.
days.
I know somebody that works at Skyward, I can fix that.
Yeah,
I know somebody that works at Skyward too, and
yeah,
owns hunts on our property.
yes, Jim King. I've been throwing his name around for cheap services. But anyway, yes, we can look and see if we can add a memo
It
line.
might be a line over here that doesn't get printed that could be moved into this.
It might be, but with the new programming, it is probably something you just have to figure out. You can take out run description, you can take out run types, you can take out check type, and maybe add in memo. But the question is that additional? Like, do you have to go to every payment and add a memo? Because Russ Davis Wholesale doesn't need to know it's fruit sale. Cindy doesn't need to know it's fruit sale. So is that something we have to add just for this report? That would be the
This
interesting
This
question.
whole report really means nothing to me other than this bottom number,
Bottom number.
Right.
Exactly.
which
Right.
becomes useless and.
Well, I would say the vast majority of it, you guys know that Wittenberg Burnwood School District is a, school district payment for $50, but I don't know if it's useless, but I think there's room for
It is,
memo.
Because I can go right, what did we pay Cameron Corner for? What did
You
we pay
could.
Engelhard? What did,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Engelhard Dairy, I can pretty much guarantee
Yeah.
that. Service.
Yeah,
No, but.
yeah,
I can go
exactly,
right
there you
down
go.
the list, these first 3-4 names, I'm guessing we're probably,
But is that new, Mark, or is that, are you saying that's the new format?
well,
Or has it always been
we
this
could
way?
always see who the check was written for.
Right.
But there was
But
also a
then there was a
description.
memo that said what it was for,
Because.
Okay,
like who's Tim
For-
Llewellyn,
yeah.
what was that
Tim
for,
Warner, was he
Mark
a-
Horn.
was he a basketball official?
they were reps, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
But I'm saying,
that statement is all it means.
Right.
yeah,
But this means nothing to us because we
Yeah.
don't know what we're approving.
right. Well, and so what you're saying is just, you need a memo line or description. Yeah.
We've got.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
got-
that's what I've been asking on all the stuff, like.
But even with the old ways, I think we got it. The horse is dead. We don't need to keep feeding it. We need a memo.
But
Yeah.
even like
Yeah.
with the busing, okay?
Yeah.
There was, I think, Safeway one on here, but there's also a big Safeway
Yeah.
one, no description of any,
Yeah.
the monthly
Yeah.
thing, the extra fuel, the field trips, the
Yeah.
co-curricular
Mhm.
trips,
Yeah.
none of that.
Yeah.
And
So anyway, we need a
and
memo line.
can I just, this is sort of a little bit into this.
Well, unless it's about this check report, we probably shouldn't talk about it right now.
Okay,
We can
well.
talk about it later.
The thing, it was something I picked up at one of the meetings.
We probably shouldn't talk about it now.
But the one part does talk about this stuff.
Right, but let's save that maybe for your board presentation on what you learned down at the thing, because right now and there's people here that wanna present.
All
So
right.
let's save that for the right part of the
Okay.
meeting. Follow the rules.
Hey,
Alright, so, the check report, I didn't know if there was anything that would be too interesting for you guys. Clearly we need a memo line, a lot of food payments, let's see, yeah, that was big FFA payment. Kerber and Rose is your audit at the bottom of page 2. So that's not the whole audit, but that's part of your audit. And $15,000, well, that's not an express. Wells Fargo Financial Leasing is your borrow and find contracts for all of your, so that $25,000 on page 3 is for all of your printers. That's a yearly lease payment. Mark's got over there, those are all refs, if they're in those $170, those are different sorts of refs.
What's WEMTA, page 4,
Page 4, Wemta.
third from the bottom.
Wemta.
Yeah.
No,
$72.
$72.
God, I know what that is too, I've
Not
seen that
that's a big
acronym.
deal, but-
I know,
She just told you that today too, and I'm trying to think of what it is.
yeah, I asked
What's
her,
the amount of it?
72
$70.
bucks.
Child support.
No,
Oh,
that's
that was
different,
one?
no,
Okay.
that's coming up.
Wisconsin Educators of Music Teaching.
That sounds right, yeah,
I knew it was something like that.
it's a fee. Yeah,
Just like,
that sounds right.
I knew you asked her about one of them,
Yeah.
so like.
From my perspective, $373,000, I've been doing this a long time, and I probably can only come up with about 200,000 that I could legitimately say.
I know
think
what
I
it's
know
for.
what this is
Sure.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's-
and I think that's true. That's true every month, but yeah, we need a memo.
Nearly
memo.
half of it that I'm approving that I can't say that it was properly, if I'm.
Which is probably true.
You know,
Yeah, so we need a memo line.
very much so.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've said it. It is known. Anything else on the back? The other thing is there, well, I hate to bring up the new Cume. Sounds like you guys don't love it right now. So at the end, instead of checks to, for reimbursements, they actually all come out as, they're now wired, so they're ACH transfers. So we're not having to print checks anymore for those people, which is a cost savings, a time savings. So they'll just come out as wireless reimbursements rather than checks. So that'll be something new. So really the checks, and at $988,522, and then these are ACHs, I believe.
What's the expert pay?
That is, how we, when the government requires us to pay for child support payments out of,
Oh, okay.
so that's how we do it. That was the one,
Like, I know
Expert
one of them.
yeah. Alright, any other questions, other than we need a memo line?
Why do you
Figure-
pay the Department of Revenue by check in one space and by wire transfer in another?
Great question, I think they're both, are you, both of those on page 6?
Yeah.
They're both non-checks, so
It doesn't say that, it says check number 202-400-111.
right,
It's a
but
wire
flip back a page, the last actual, the paper checks in this run, the last one is 988,522. Everything on the back page is a different kind of wire transfer or ACH payment.
Oh, yeah.
So they're all electronic, they just have different, there's different names for each one, but they're all electronic. That's a world I'm glad I don't have to live in.
What's Belson Company on page 5?
Oh, I asked that one. That's chemical cleaners, and that is mostly toilet paper and paper towels. $7,700 worth of toilet paper and paper towels, and cleaners, and chemical cleaners.
Teach them kids to count sheets.
And I think that's
You
one
can
ply,
fly.
Wayne. I think that's one ply. All right, any other questions? And again, please, feel free to email questions ahead of time. Always a good idea.
We wouldn't have to if she put that.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. we didn't have it.
I-
I
Wait,
know.
are you saying we need a memo line? Okay, check.
I need the descriptive.
Jody, can you write
It's
down
already
that we
in
need
the
a memo
It's
line?
already in the minutes.
Good. Can you print that in the artist that we need a memo line?
No.
I
Why
sent
did
it
we
this
not
morning.
get these in our email?
I sent it this
You
morning.
got 'em straight.
because it's not
This morning, I
completed.
saw it this afternoon before
Because it's not it was not completed.
Well, these are,
Just send us a little message saying I'm sending it tomorrow or something.
which, see, we don't get time to look through the stuff then either if we don't get it till,
yeah.
especially if we're busy doing stuff.
Be careful.
Busy people.
I
know.
I'm crabby too, so.
Oh, boy. That's great.
All right, I would
Just
entertain a
so-
motion then to approve the payments of checks and receipts of revenue from December 18th of 2024 to January 28th of 2025. We have a second.
Second.
Forgot your name. Oh my God.
Who
All right.
seconded it?
I said,
Mark. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right.
Just note, next month, I'm not gonna approve them if they.
If there's not a memo line.
I would agree.
I'll second that.
All right, moving on to public forum. Is there anyone here that wishes to address the board?
There's lots of people
Okay,
who will be
there's lots of
addressing the
people
board.
here that will be. Onto the consent agenda. We have items A through C.
I'd like to, make one, to the policy stuff.
That's not in the consent agenda.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it
Minutes
is.
from the policy committee.
Oh, the minutes.
The
Got
minutes.
it.
The
Not
minutes,
the-
the minutes,
Oh,
the
good,
minutes, yeah,
good.
the minutes, excuse me.
Gotcha.
Shouldn't Jamie's, name be added to that, because he was presenting it to us there at the meeting?
I'm not on the board committee, well, but you can if you want.
Well, you were the one presenting stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you don't even show up as being present in the meeting, so yes, we can adjust.
You can if you'd like,
We can
sure.
address that, yes.
I don't know, am I usually in the committee ones?
Yes.
Okay.
Those that are present are always listed.
But I'm not at this one. Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right, who's
Second that, please.
Mark made the motion. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Okay.
Okay,
Birdie.
Birdie, all right. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries
With adjustment on.
with adjustment to the policy committee.
Add Jamie to the
Add Jamie.
policy present.
All right, there is no unfinished business that I know of. Is that correct? Okay, on to new business then. Discussion and action to approve the special education open enrollment seats available in our district.
Same as every other year, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. We are full with our resident students and we always get more than we can handle to some extent, so this district has always put their open enrollment slots for outside of the district to come in at 0. And that's what you have to approve.
But if the kid moves in,
Then they're a resident,
you take
then you
them.
have to
They're
take
a
them.
resident, so we
Yep.
have to. Any questions? Any other discussion? I would accept a motion then to accept the special education open enrollment seats available in our district for the 25-26 school year.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Birdie will second.
She almost moved. Close.
Alrighty. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
I got a question.
Sure.
Did I miss us talking about public forum?
No.
yeah,
Yeah, she
Yeah,
had to do it.
You must have missed it, yeah, we.
Okay, I guess I'm dozing.
Alrighty, correspondence? Any correspondence that we need to know? Nope. Alright, moving on to reports then. Our first report is CTE. Miss Emily.
So it's not just me, I have a team with me.
Pictures?
Stole away.
The memos. You have descriptions.
I got it. 1 second.
She's got her son's birthday party.
Oh.
Selfish.
Now she's
It's loading, sorry.
Right, did I say that right? She's just, right, isn't it?
Carl's son's birthday tonight.
Oh, and you showed.
Well, that was.
Impressive.
Sure.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Kristoviak. This is,
Carl Summer. Travis Zelmer.
I'm the 612 school counselor here. I started here at TC last year and Carl's been here for 5 years now, 3 years, couple years.
Your third year.
And Travis just started this year. And so today we are here to talk to you guys about our education for employment plan, which is a plan that needs to be approved by the school board. So we're gonna talk a little bit about career and technical education here at TC. And take it away, Carl.
Well, there's been obviously a need and a push to get CTE a little bit better organized and founded. And so kind of building those blocks together, I think this is from the state's website. It's a pretty good visual on getting work-based learning, leadership, CTSOs, which would be student organizations, and those skills that they're gaining in classes, whether that's a CTE class or a core class, getting those all to work together, to come together and get a goal for whatever that might be after they leave here, whether that's their goal is to go on to a four-year school or to go directly to work or apprenticeship program or whatever that might be. So bringing those all together is kind of the focus of CTE. And Travis is going to tell us a little bit about his programs.
So I replaced Doreen Kruger from Business Ed. Just a little bit of my background. I didn't go into teaching right away. I graduated from college and went into the business world right away. Spent a lot of time in the paper industry as a financial analyst. I was actually a scientist for 7 years for the paper mill. So I have a pretty well diverse business background. And then I've been teaching for Lakeland University since 2008. I still teach for them right now. I've taught for Midstate. I've taught at Nakusa for 7 years. I came from Amherst for 11 years. And so I have an idea of what a curriculum should look like for business based on my background. My wife is also a chief financial officer of a big company. I have a lot of contacts in the business world. And so when I got hired here, I sat down with Nick and I said, this is what I think. That's what I think Tri-County needs here. And middle school, required 8th grade class, teach a class called Introduction to Business and Information Technology. Very heavy on information technology, and then at the same time I introduce them to business, like, you know, skimming over like what accounting is, what finance is, what human resources is, and all the different types of fields. When Doreen had it, it just was strictly like a keyboarding beginning level computer course. And I cover all that stuff at the same time, though I kind of, give them an introduction to my department and hopefully get them to, want to explore more business classes down the road. High school, Accounting 1, I don't think there was any dual credit here for business. No. Okay, so one of the things that I brought here, and it's really good for our students, I brought 2 dual credit classes, which means basically they take the classes here and they get college credit for it. And they don't have to spend the college tuition and buy the books and the programs. I brought 2 of those courses here, Accounting 1. It's dual credit with a technical college system, so every technical college system accepts it, and probably about 50% of the 4-year universities will accept it. And then the other dual credit I brought in was Microsoft Office Introduction, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Access. And again, same thing. Every technical college accepts it, and I would say probably about 70% of the 4-year universities accept it. I brought an advanced placement class here too, AP Microeconomics. That's a high school class, but students will have the option of taking an AP exam in May, and if they score a certain number on that, then they'll get college credit. Personal finance. This school has had that as a requirement, which was good. You were very forward thinking. As Act 60, I think, just passed this past summer, which now requires personal finance in every single public school system, beginning with this year's freshmen, so the class of 28. We have that here already, so I'm going to continue that, obviously. And then I brought marketing here, which is one of the biggest fields in business. So really heavy on freshmen and sophomores there on that marketing class. So I also brought a CTSO, which is an acronym for Career and Technical Student Organization, and the one I brought here is FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. In fact, we have our regional competition this coming Saturday in Edgar. So just to give you a brief introduction of what that is, there's 31 high schools that are going to Edgar, and it's based on geographics, not enrollment. So Spash will be there, Rhinelander will be there, DC Everest will be there, Marshfield will be there. There's like 70 some events, and students pick one event. And they usually pick that around October, November. I give them study materials, I help them study, and then on first Saturday in February, we go and compete, and our kids will compete against whatever kids from the other 31 schools signed up for that event. There's another organization out there called DECA, but that's mostly for marketing. Since we don't have a standalone marketing teacher here, some huge school districts do, FBLA is a lot more appropriate here. The only other thing I'd like to touch on is, and Nick's gonna get that later, right now for our graduation requirements, we are requiring 2.5 credits of CTE, and that part isn't gonna change, but one of those, the half of the 2.5 is a standalone computer course, and Nick will talk about us wanting to change that because every one of my classes is gonna be heavily, I'm very into technology, very into, so kids are gonna get a huge dose of technology in all these classes. And so we're not lowering the requirements at all, we just want that half credit to be either here or in one of the other CTE areas. They're gonna get a heavy dose of technology in anything that they take from me. Questions? Anything I can?
How many are going to Edgar with you?
26. I was told I'd be lucky to get 3 or 4 kids out. They have 26 out. Next year I'll be over 30. It's pretty good. We got an awesome sophomore class. That's the key. We just got an awesome sophomore class. They are into whether it's sports or whatever. It doesn't matter. School related things. It's awesome. And the rest of the school feeds off that.
Well, Teresa's out today, so one time I picked some rocks, so I get to talk about agriculture. No. So she has 8th graders in FACT, Future Agriculture Careers Teamwork. So there's that rotation that Travis was talking about. And then Teresa has a bunch of dual credit classes in the ag department, and some of those also have science equivalency, the animal science and the animal science 1 and 2. That dual credit science equivalency, plant science, natural resources, food science, so they can get that science credit, or they can, and that mid-state credit there as well. And then some of the other things she's has in place, the food science 2, farm to fork, I believe that was new this year, possibly last year, where they're trying to connect the kids with like how does the food actually show up at the grocery store on your table, because it's sort of like magic to many. Landscaping, filial design, outdoor rec, careers, independent leadership, FFA leadership, and then she clearly has a CTSO with middle and high school FFA chapter, which has been pretty active in a number of events already this year. I know there were some pictures out just recently of that event yesterday. They were competing in a speaking contest. I can ask you if you have questions on this. I don't know if I can answer them, but I can try. Okay. So technology education. I have 7th graders in exploratory, and have CAD 2D, CAD 3D. Both of those are dual credit. Graphic communication, metals 1. Welding is dual credit. Power and energy was 1 and 2. Construction is dual credit with mid-state as well. Production solutions and energy concepts, car care, women in woods. That was an addition this year, and that's been a trip. It's great fun. There's been lots of fun and excitement. Yeah, really good attitude there with just exciting to do stuff and not have. Just have kind of a freedom to do that without people looking over their shoulder and doubting their skills. And, so that's a little bit about that. These I could answer questions on.
So what do they do with Women in Woods?
Well, the only difference between Women in Woods and Woods 1 is that guys can't sign up for it.
Right, okay.
So they're doing the same project, but there's.
I thought they were out in the woods.
No, to support what you said, this is not phrased correctly. It's not exactly.
It's women in woodwork.
In woodwork.
That was also good.
But they're just in there with their peers versus in there with the guys, and there's a number of them. we had the class last semester and we have a section this semester, and there was a
We do need to do a timber harvest at the school.
there were quite a few we don't we could, yeah we need wood no there were quite a few seniors in our first set last semester, and there was a few of them that said, man, I wish we could have done this earlier, because then they felt a little more confidence to take, say, like a metals class or a something like that. So there's just like that a fear, I think, of like looking down in front of their peers, and that's not necessarily the case, but they feel that way. So that is a little bit of something up for them to overcome. So in this semester, I have mostly freshmen and sophomores, but I'm hoping like next year some of those girls will be more apt to sign up for Wellbeing Learn for other things that they're interested in.
Oh,
Other questions?
So I partner with Teresa Gladowski on completing youth apprenticeship and school to work. So our youth apprenticeship and school to work program has really grown since the time that I started here last year. So very proud of that and Teresa's work with encouraging that within our juniors and seniors. But what youth apprenticeship is an opportunity for juniors and seniors within our school district to leave our campus as long as they qualify academically and on track for graduation, and have a partnership with a business within our community where they can then go out and complete their work experience and get skilled training, of which has to meet certain requirements within their career cluster and within their employer. So it's an agreement between the employer and the school district that these qualifications have to be met, and a specific number of hours, so which is 450 hours. So a student can choose to start this already at the end of their sophomore year, or could start it as late as the fall of their senior year, but they must complete that 450 hours to get that state certification. Some youth apprenticeships do lead into adult apprenticeships, which of course maybe you're more familiar, so like pipe fitting or welding or manufacturing career clusters. But either way, some of those hours in some of those career clusters can go forward. So it's a really huge benefit for students to not only get paid, get skilled training, but then also potentially start their adult apprenticeship after high school graduation. So right now we have 12 students that are listed within our junior and senior class, which is just about 90 put together. So we have 12 students that are participating in that this year. And then students who choose or that want to continue with school to work but don't want that youth apprenticeship commitment can participate in that, and that is only eligible for seniors. And currently right now we have 11 students that are enrolled in school to work. So we're looking at 23 students total, junior senior class, that are choosing to get on-site job experience through youth apprenticeship and school to work. So we only see this program growing between all of our departments, encouraging students to get out there and start working within the safety of their high school career, so that we can get them good instruction through these programs. So that's a little bit about youth apprenticeship and school to work.
So one of the things about this plan is trying to get a better understanding and connection with not just the school itself, but with the local community. So we've been meeting with some local industry people, local businesses, having those conversations about what they're seeing in their individual field, what they're not seeing in their field. And then just trying to learn from that. We've had some good ties there. We've had some, as you probably know, some donations. We've had some just feedback. We've had some volunteers come in and help our students, and also offer up, say, hey, you should check this out or do that, or some of that knowledge that they have about their industry, because it's their industry. And then looking at concentrators is a thing that we look at and analyze every year. We currently have 55 CTE concentrators, which means they're taking 2 or more CTE classes in an individual pathway. So that sort of says that student has a really distinct interest in that area, whether it's accounting or it's in ag or whatever that area is. So we look at that. And 58% of high school students participate in their career. They participate in dual credit or work-based learning. And 21, was that, did we get it, were they right, this together, the same numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah, 21 students are currently, I guess we kind of repeated that from the 2 slides, but youth apprenticeship and that work-based learning, we've got a fair number of students, and sometimes that involves them missing school, sometimes it doesn't involve them missing school, and we have people in agriculture, healthcare,
Food service.
a pretty wide variety of activities that students are working under. They have to be in a career pathway, so sometimes students are interested in things that don't fall into one of those categories, and there isn't any apprenticeship available. But typically, if the student has a good standing and if they are willing and looking in a particular area, there's usually a place that they can get pointed and they can get some of that experience, and maybe they decide it's a great thing they want to pursue, or maybe they decide they hate it and they at least won't have to try that one when they leave here.
I'm up next. Yep. Okay, so that brings us again why we're here tonight. So we are talking a little bit about our education for employment plan that we are asking you as a school board to approve our plan. Education for employment has been in place since 1985, and it came as a result of realizing that not many students had plans for after high school, which then led to PI 26, which is required by all school districts in the state of Wisconsin from the 17-18 school year going forward, that all 6th through 12th grade students must be or have available to them career access software, which we use Zello, which is provided by the state of Wisconsin. And in addition to that, they also have activities such as CTSOs, such as Start College Now, early college credit offerings, our CTE departments, so tech ed, ag, and business here within our district, and that they have a plethora of in-person activities such as field trips, as well as conversations with myself and other teachers to help them make that plan for high school and post-high school graduation. So this meeting, or again why we're presenting, is to ask you for your approval of our plan, which is on our next slide. And so these are the goals that we would like to accomplish as a CTE team.
So again, the most important thing, when students graduate here, they need to be able to get a job and hold a job down. That's the most important thing, that we're preparing them for life after Tri-County. So all of us have conversations going with local employers. For example, I'll just name one. Dean Benjamin, he's the Vice President of Product Development for Pixel Paper Mill in Stevens. He's one of the people I contact probably once a month, and he fills me in on what he's looking for. So everybody, Teresa, Carl, we all have people on it we have conversations with. Then we get together at least quarterly and talk about that, like what are we missing here, or what are we doing good, or what do we need? And then again, we want to create a district ACP plan that'll be posted on the website, so parents, whoever wants to in the school district, can access it and see it from their own, from their home or wherever they feel they have time to look at it.
So this is meant to be a living document, not just to put on a shelf and say we're never going to talk about it again. So expect to hear from us at some point in time in the near future on how we're doing on our plan. But we do appreciate your guys' support of career and technical education and academic and career planning. Obviously, we went into our professions for those specific reasons. So being able to provide those opportunities for our students is just a blessing. It is truly a blessing. So thank you so much for your continued support. Do you guys have any questions that we can answer for you this evening about anything you heard?
I guess I'd just like to make a comment about Carl's last one and a little bit about Travis's. I just sat in last week on a seminar down there from Lodi, and they were talking something like you're talking there about bringing the rural businesses in and getting them involved in the school and with the kids and getting them interested, and also it brings the businesses into the school and stuff too, and they even bring some of the businesses in to talk to the kids at different times and all that. So I'd make a motion, but my only question, and she hasn't asked for it, can we do it today? Cause we didn't put discussion.
So your
down.
approval, and I don't know if it needs to be an action item, if it does, we can do it next month, we couldn't do it tonight. But like the Act 20 plan you're gonna hear later from, you hearing it and accepting it is all you probably need for this. But I'm gonna double check on that if we actually need an action item. Usually it's not an action item approval, it has to be presented once a year to the board has to say, and then we get to hear from them again next year, just like the Act 20 plan and other plans.
And I would like to ask Jody if she could send me the thing or not. Cause I'd like to see all the classes and stuff that.
Oh, the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
This right now?
One other thing I'll just point out for the business standpoint, I have a website and it's posted right on the school district's website. If you go to the Tri-County's website and click on menu under departments, I have business education. If you click on that, you can see my website. I also have a document on there that'll list everything I teach, all the state standards I cover, and all the student learning objectives for each course that I teach. So if you ever find yourself in a snow day and you're bored and you're sitting there going, what can I do for an hour? There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's my website. I have 5 links on top. For FBLA, that's for lists all my plans from now till June, in case any students are absent. Here's that document I'm telling about standard scope, and so I guess on a touchscreen. So what am I doing?
Yeah.
Used to the smart board. So
Someday, Trav.
So for example, accounting, these are my lessons. Those are the state standards covered. And then if you click on accounting objectives,
Oh, sure, of course.
this will tell you what I expect every kid to learn when that lesson's over. And I got that for all 6 of my classes on there.
Good job.
Do you teach budgeting in that class?
Yes, I do.
Mark, sign it up.
And how to write a check and how to balance a checkbook.
No, I deal with a bunch of college kids that have no clue what budget is, and it drives me nuts.
Does everybody on the board want this, or just?
Still share with all. If you share with them, you gotta share with all.
Thank you.
Good job.
Send, Jim. Send. You're welcome. Okay, now I gotta move to Mr. J.
Strategic. No, he's got his own. Oh, yeah, okay, Bob.
We gotta hook him up.
All right,
You're
next
gonna
up.
do another one. You're gonna have to go back.
Oh, I have to go back to my chairs.
That's what I was asking first.
Next thing on the agenda is our strategic plan.
Fancy guy. Jeez.
And here to present is Jay Paul.
You're making me look
Hi,
bad.
Jake.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Jake Wolf from CISA 5. I'm a curriculum specialist, part of the School Improvement Services team down there at CISA 5. So I'm here to learn about Act 20 later. That'll be some of my colleagues, our reading specialists. I was invited by Jamie to come in and help you conduct strategic planning support for your district. So thanks for inviting me to do that. A couple people in the back, I remember, were in the room here for our community nights 1 and 2. We collected student input for what our community values are. And we looked at the poster over here. You can see the former vision and mission statement. I think it was pre-2016 we determined that was done.
Yeah, it was right around there. Yep.
So 8+ years ago. So do for perhaps an upgrade, which is what we did this year. So I thought what I'd do in 10 minutes or less is share with you our strategy, how we went through this, and then of course share the actual new updated plan with you and allow some time for questions. Sound like it'll take some
Great.
time? Okay. So a review, we went through these 3 different inputs for information. We had community night number 1, and then we took those results and we surveyed staff and students, and we asked them what they would like to see on the updated strategic plan. In that first community night, I think we had about a dozen people, and we divided into 3 groups, and you can see the different themes that each group came up with, and they prioritized them. So you can see community engagement, for example, makes sense that the community would like to see that from our school district. We took those results and we surveyed staff and students. Some of them were pretty similar, and that's, of course, you can see here perhaps academic success, pretty similar to looking at, look here, college and career ready. I think we ended up combining that here, you can see, because they're pretty similar. We want to see kind of what the CTE team just said is going to be that that career and college ready. I'll speak more to that. And what we did was we ranked them depending on how your staff and students voted along with the community. And depending on how high they prioritized them, we allotted a point system, 5 points for the highest priority, 1 point for the least. Same thing with the staff and students. And what that did is it rose these 6 different values to the top of our list. And that's what we decided to prioritize in our updated value statements. Not to say we're going to ignore these things. I told you I work with curriculums, but I also work with technology, as Cindy mentioned, and AI, of course, in schools has been a big disruptor in education as of late, but also a huge opportunity for us to be able to leverage and improve student learning. So I'm going to explain how I use a little bit of AI to make sure that in our value statements, we didn't leave anything out from any of the community nights or any of the inputs that staff and students gave us. So taking these 6 different priority areas, we mapped out these 6 different themes: community engagement, academic success, promoting health and well-being for both staff and students, character development, teaching for tomorrow. Now we use that term instead of college and career ready because it might make sense for Nick to use the term college and career ready when thinking about the secondary goals, but for Brittany in the elementary, teaching for tomorrow, it just allows us to think, what are the skills needed for the future? Maybe we have to make that tough decision to no longer teach cursive, and instead we're going to focus on digital citizenship. Just there's only so many minutes in a day, so just helping guide what those skills are for teaching for tomorrow's skills. And oops, I don't think I mentioned our last one here: robust, inclusive, and equitable curricular opportunities. And that was created by combining robust elective and extracurricular opportunities with an engaging and equitable curriculum. Let me pause here. Any questions about how we narrowed down from all of the wonderful ideas, themes, and values to these 6 priority themes? All right, I'm gonna keep moving. What I would typically do then with the district is we would look at those vision and mission, and that would be the roof, but the pillars supporting this would be the different values that we came up with. And then I would have district leadership team create goals and strategic initiatives. I'll bring this graphic back in a moment, but you can see the whole thing will come together shortly. Taking these top 6 values and using AI, used Gemini, which is Google's version of ChatGPT. If you've experimented with AI at all in the last 2 years, Gemini has offered an extra layer of protection to us in schools. They have promised not to train their model on staff inputs. So if you were to use Gemini using your Tri-County domain, that's important for protecting our students' personally identifiable information. So I've been trying to model using Gemini, and through prompting Gemini and feeding Gemini the inputs from the staff survey and the community inputs, it created some very nice value descriptors that we were able to then bring to community night number 2. And then we spent some time wordsmithing and making improvements upon what the AI suggested, and we crafted our own, personalized them. The other thing we did at community night number 2 is we updated our vision and mission statements. Talked to the team about what a vision is, and I said it's what we aspire to be. Very short, we want just a couple of words to say this is what we would like to envision for our district a couple years down the road, maybe 5 to 10 years down the road. Whereas a mission, that can be a little bit longer. That's what we aspire to do. Could be a couple sentences in length saying what our true mission and our, as a community, as a school district would be. So the previous vision statement was all students will pursue opportunities to recognize and fulfill their potential. When we surveyed your staff and students, you can see it was on a 1 to 5 scale. Definitely people liked it. They didn't see it as a huge problem, with the exception of maybe 10 people out of 53 were on the low end of that. But we took that information back to community night number 2, as well as all of the feedback that staff gave. And I gave this link to Jamie and Jiggy. Jamie, you're more than welcome to share this with them so that they can read this in depth. But we spent time unpacking this for community night number 2. And what we decided to do is update the vision, and this is the new vision that the community came up with: a model of educational excellence with diverse opportunities for all. So that would be our updated vision statement for the district. I'm gonna keep moving unless you stop me. Remember, the mission statement is what we aspire to do. Again, surveying staff and students, it wasn't that a mission statement was disliked. More people liked it, but we still, taking the responses that our staff and students gave us, we also decided to update the mission statement. And here is our new updated mission: to provide a safe, inclusive, and supportive learning environment that empowers every student to achieve academic excellence, develop their full potential, and become responsible, contributing members of society. Cindy, if you're not catching every word, don't worry, you've got the slides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, thank you.
I do recall in our conversation, and jump in here anytime anybody who was here, we intentionally used that word provide. We thought about the population of our students and how as a district we take pride in providing for our students, whether that's meals providing, whether that's a safe and secure environment, whether that's a loving environment. We felt to intentionally use that word provide was what the community really wanted to emphasize. So this was kind of fun for me. I'm not a graphic designer by trade, but I thought, you know, with the penguin design here, rather than the traditional pillars here, how cool would it be if we could create an iceberg, right? Cool. And this out here, and I shared this digitally with. Just give me a handful to pass it down.
Did you see it?
Yeah. And our admin team.
So a little symbolism here with our iceberg below the surface. You may not see it, but these are our values as a district, as well as the descriptor of those 6 values. Above the iceberg, what you would see is our updated vision and mission statement. So we condense all of that work down into one page that can be printed out, laminated, blown up into a poster. I encourage you to put this in every classroom. We'll have our administrators, our leaders put this next to their computer in their office so that when you're making decisions, this is referenced always and often. As you're all reading here, do you have any questions on this?
Thank you for taking the extra time to get a cool, marketable
Yeah.
building above and beyond Mr. Bull.
I enjoyed it. Now, I did have some colleagues tease me that it looks a little like Smokey the Bear.
Yeah, it says it on there.
Now you put it in everybody's head. Forget that he said it.
The poster link there that I shared, there's this.
It's on the mind. It's on the mind. I like it.
All right, so the final step of this process was I met with your district leadership team, your administrators, pupil services director, your special ed director, school counselors. I think our nurse was there perhaps. And what we did is I went through exactly what I just shared with you, perhaps in a little more, gave them the feedback from the staff so they could see that as well. And then we looked at this. How can we take this idea, take this iceberg, and create building improvement plans for elementary school, middle school, high school? And I shared this with the recommendation to take 1 or 2 goals for each level. And actually, I will hand this out so that you can see it. It's blank at this point because this is up for Nick and Brittany and Jamie and the leadership team. They now have the compass, that's the iceberg, to guide them. And using this template, they can create goals as well as strategies and projects to complete those goals. We always want to think about the success indicators from the beginning so that we know how and when we accomplish those goals, the when being, of course, the due date. Committee members, we're going to think about who is going to be involved and perhaps leading that work. And of course, the stacks, not start at this point, because now that we have this, once we approve this tonight, then we can move forward with that, creating our building improvement plans. As you if you flipped over to the back of this, you can see just the same idea with the different, come back here, with the different priorities. And I'm glad I got to follow here, like teaching for tomorrow, as well as that robust, inclusive, and equitable curriculum. Got some great ideas. Partly you can take credit for a growing FBLA program, for a growing YA program. But let's say 26 students going to FBLA this year, you talk about 30 next year. This could be now when the CTE team and other teams think about what their goals are gonna be for their departments. Now they have a district-wide strategic plan to align their goals to. When your individual staff members, teachers think about their student learning objectives, their own personal professional goals, again, we would like everybody in the district swimming in the same direction. Ooh, another iceberg connection.
Right now.
Alright, so the next steps, of course, if the school board should choose to approve this plan, would be to celebrate this, communicate this out, put this on our district website, print this off, put it in classrooms, and revisit this as our leadership team creates goals aligned to this. I think I put on there a 3-year goal, 2025 to 2028. Of course, if we revisit this in 2028 and think that this iceberg is still wonderful and we just need to update that building improvement plan from year to year, then we extend it to 2029, 2030, until you determine that you may come back together as a community and update anything. All right, what questions do you have for me? Very well, thanks for having me.
Jay.
I think the iceberg did it. That was a clincher right there. Thank you so much.
All right. On to item C, the January convention reports.
I was supposed to go, I didn't go, and I can tell you all about my root canal. So Bertie and Jim and Jamie went. Wanna start?
Sure. Okay, so this is my first time to the convention, being a really pretty new board member, and it was phenomenal. I mean, the amount of information, the variety of classes, it was terrific. The lineup for classes was great. In fact, most mornings, because they run multiple classes at the same time slot, it was hard to choose which ones to go to because they had everything from AI. There were a number of classes talking about how AI affects, education, how it's changing. There was everything from student mental health to, it ran the gamut. I think my favorite class, or the one that I found most beneficial, was called Financials 101. It was like it was the entire morning. It was a big long class, and it was very comprehensive. I think most people kind of know that finances regarding like schools, it's very complicated. It's extraordinarily complicated. And what was really nice is they ran down everything, explained a lot of things, and there was a lot of time for questions. And in fact, the issue that we were talking about before with your checks and the descriptions, that's not just a problem here. Somebody else brought it up and everybody in the room was kind of like, yeah. And that's kind of why I brought up the memo line, because I'm about 98% sure that they mentioned that Skyward and that there is a way to do that. So it's not just us, it's all over. Yeah, and I think I wrote down like a whole notebook worth of questions too. I have to follow up with, but yeah, it was a very worthwhile experience. I learned a lot, and yeah, very good.
I used to do the
resolutions?
No, I didn't,
I was supposed to do that.
yeah, I felt a little, that wouldn't have been very,
Prepared, you would have enjoyed that.
it's a hoot.
That's very good.
Yeah, I guess I didn't have to get too many of these to carry too many board members out. There's, for Cindy, you didn't get yours, right? So there you can, and there, you can look at that and come down to convention some your way. But, yeah, I wanna thank the board for allowing me to go down there for the 20th year, I think. I just learned so much stuff. I know I've brought a lot of stuff over years back. I've got some stuff here, hopefully, that I can talk to Jamie or the principals about on a couple of different things and, or the board. But to follow up a little bit what Bertie said, I mean, I sat in on like 8 different sessions with 10, 12, 15 different things you can choose from. I sat in on like 8 of them. We had 3 general sessions, and also we went to the breakfast on Thursday morning where they have just unbelievable speakers. I don't know where they get all their speakers. I mean, to me, they're just unbelievable what they come across with and everything.
Comes from good staff at the BSB is what that is.
Well, yeah. And anyway, just a couple of I went to. I also went to the pre-convention workshop on Tuesday, but unfortunately, I got there a little about an hour late because it was 18 degrees below here and frozen and everything. The skid steer didn't start and they couldn't get water and it was good. So I missed the first part and I really wanted to because it was mastering publicly reported data for school board members. And I'm hoping I can get, because I did talk to a couple of the instructors afterwards a little bit. We were supposed to be able to also run off some of this data and stuff. And the last day I went up to try to run it off and the printer wasn't working. So then I got the one lady, well, she couldn't get it working. So she went and got somebody else. And, well, she couldn't get it working. But then they said, well, you can get it off at home. So, okay, thanks. But I'll just pass that around so if anybody wants to look at it. That's just the thing. But then they also gave us this little program about the district report cards they talked about. They also talked about Wise Dash Public, where you can go on and get all this data about your schools or other schools in the state and everything. And then here in the back, some of the key questions they put out to impact: what does success look like and how do we measure it? Student outcomes: what trends and gaps do data reveal? Data quality: are we using accurate, up-to-date, and inclusive data? Process: what is the process used for continuous improvement? Engagement: how are key partners involved in data-driven decisions? Communications: how are we communicating performance outcomes with our key partners? Resources: how do we ensure our resources align with goals? And capacity: do board members and staff have the tools and training to use data effectively? So that's, and then there was a school perception. It was actually, school perception was there, but there was 2 schools, the Tomahawk District and the Sparta District. The superintendents were there and they presented most of it, but the school perceptions, who they work with, And, I'll just pass this around, you guys can just take a little look at it, a piece that they had. Tomahawk's been doing this for 3 years, and, Sparta's just doing it once every 3 years. But their data, like they just put a few questions here, you can look at, and they also, well, and I asked the guy afterwards what this costs, and he said $1,200, but the thing is, and it $1,900 if you include all the other different stuff. But they normally do it between 6th and 12th grade, but now they've been moving to 4th through 12th grade. And the superintendents, they were talking, well, like I say, I'll pass this around, you guys just look at some of the questions here and they're scored a little bit and what it's just kind of general. But they asked the kids, and they also do it with parents and staff and stuff too, but it's basically where the kids, and they're asking them about, you know, how they feel about their classes and like bullying stuff, or and they have a score that the kids can give, and like Tomahawk likes it because by doing it every year they can get another reading from kids if they moved up, and it supposedly has helped the staff because they see this stuff and learn, you know, what's going on or what the kids are kind of saying. So I was kind of, you know, the two superintendents seemed pretty, they thought it was real helpful, so. And, you know, there's, I don't know, if anybody wants to look at this, it's some other stuff that I either got from meetings or grabbed. Here's a book that I found sitting in one of the things about the WASB resolutions. It's a whole thing of all the resolutions from back over the years and that. I've never seen that before. And then this one's an effective legislative advocacy, a toolkit for school board members, which is like that one is. I think it's dealing with Medford and some of it, but it tells, you know, shows letters you can, or how you deal with the legislators and stuff. And then when I was trying to get some stuff printed, okay, so then it started we got it printing a little bit. Well, then here's stuff that printed out. Title IX litigation. On January 9, 2025, the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Kentucky issued a decision ordering what is called the vacator of the 2024 Title IX regulations in their entirety. And it says, and there's a bunch more on here of the Title IX stuff, and I just grabbed it because I don't know if Jamie got that kind of stuff or not, but. And another one that, I guess I'd pass around, and if anybody wants to look at it. I sat in and how much health policies do we have, Jamie, in our new policies?
How much, I'm sorry?
Health policies?
What do you mean, like how many, or?
Well, okay, because I went in and sat on, and I forgot what the name was. Well, it's some FIAD teachers and health teachers.
Ah, gotcha.
And they were explaining how they're worried they're teaching the health stuff to the kids, but they're worried because their school's policies don't always cover them for doing some of this stuff.
Like if they're teaching sex ed and they're
they're suggesting that we all you know,
take a look at them.
Take a look at the stuff to see, because they don't feel comfortable in even some of their own schools because they don't have some of these policies. So
right. And
then the reason I got that, and this one here, you can look at too, I picked up, I want this one back, but Jamie can have the others, or the,
I'll keep them.
what's called, I don't know if our cause I stopped at the booth afterwards to talk to them. Do any of ours go to the,
Professional development for.
that FIAD and that have? I mean, there's a one.
Not every year, but I think they go every few years. Liz may go or one of the other fellows.
Our teachers aren't the ones that are teaching at those specific health lessons. We have either different classes or we have Nurse Stacy who has a program that she works with the counselors. And then usually, like Mr. Kristoviak partners, so they have a female and male. But it's usually not our FIAD teachers that are doing those types of things. They're strictly kind of more the FIAD. So they haven't gone to something specifically on.
Well, the convention, it deals with FIAD stuff too, not
Yep.
just health
Yep.
stuff.
And they can. I know Carla usually tries to go for music. They have a convention every year, and I think Liz 2 years ago had a convention that she went to on our end. FIAD too.
Okay, and the last thing I just say and shut up, is I got a couple things here. Well, I also picked up a piece on the OLED stuff, and but I picked up a couple pieces on CISA, and I guess I'd like to read that now. Probably just give it to the principal. Also, the same thing. The last day, right when they were closing up, I came across one of the booths that had iReady in it, and I was talking with the lady and guy there about it, but I didn't have a lot of time to talk. But I don't know what we really have for that stuff, but I said some stuff to them because of the our elementary report card and stuff, and you know, what stuff do you have, because they had all kinds of stuff there on the table and that. And she picked up this and talked about iReady, that a lot of schools are using this because they claim that it's the best. I don't know if it is. I did talk to one, I don't remember if it was a board member or superintendent there before even, that said something when I was talking about stuff, said about iReady is a really excellent thing that's doing great in a lot of these schools, and a lot of them that are so like I say, I'd like to read this person, and I'll give to you guys if you haven't got stuff like that.
It's actually the one that we had and got rid of. So iReady is the exact same thing as Renaissance Star. So it's like your universal screener. So our kids usually take it. It's supposed to be done 3 times a year, but our kids do it 4 times a year at the elementary level because they do it right when they first start within the first like 3 weeks of school, and then we do it for kind of the quarters. But we had gotten rid of iReady. Nick Sen at the building used Star, and then what we were finding with our iReady data, there was more capability with Star to actually divide up the domains for state standards and look at the individual standards, how the kids were doing on the individual standards, so that when we get ready for the board exam or as teachers are preparing, they can kind of use that to tailor what they're instructing on. iReady we had used, but what we were seeing was it was giving us like an elevated level of data, and then what we were getting on our STAR exams wasn't at all matching. And we had talked to, the guy's name was actually Jake Ball, but it wasn't this Jake Ball, but that was our person that we had as our representative, and he came in and met with me, and he didn't have a great idea. When we had purchased iReady, it was because we had some teachers who went to a convention and they adopted iReady Reading and iReady Math at 1 grade level to try. And so that kind of followed it along for that year. And then when we had to renew our certification, it was much more expensive than the STAR program. So we went back to STAR so that the whole district aligned. And actually with the iReady books, there's a person that comes to districts to buy back unused materials. And there's a curriculum that actually curriculum for iReady Math and iReady Reading. We had all this unused curriculum from iReady Reading and iReady Math, like books that hadn't been used or workbooks that hadn't been entered in, and the person refused to buy back any iReady things because the state was going away from iReady, he said, for the curriculum. So I think some places use iReady, some places use STAR.
our district uses STAR just because of like the experience that we had with iReady not matching and aligning and kind of showing that we were doing really well, which then we get our board exam scores and we're like, that doesn't match. And just the capabilities that STAR has, but it's a similar program, and I've heard of other districts that do like it too. It's really nice being able to have representatives that live right in Wisconsin Rapids and Plover that can come to us on site when we have stuff for STAR rather than do the virtual ones through iReady too. But some districts really like it, I think, still, and use it.
So what are we using like instead of that, or what are we using for curriculum now? What do we use?
So iReady has two separate things. iReady is like a universal screener for assessment, but then they also have a reading and a math curriculum. We had one grade level, 4th grade was the only grade level that was using it. They just bought it themselves one year to try, and they used it for a few years. But the majority of our classrooms are using Wonders, and you'll see some information that you can click on to get more specific information on that when I present, but we're using Wonders right now for reading at the elementary level, and then Into Math is the series that we piloted and then purchased for math. Both are highly rated on Ed Reports.
Anything else from the conference?
Well, the thing I was trying to ask you before, and it's one of them is like
Hand that down.
well, let me talk to you first,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I'll
okay.
send it down, and if I can get a copy back to read, because I picked it up there and looked, and like what Bertie said here, and how I kind of rudely said about the checks.
Descriptions.
You know, here it's recommended financial monitoring tool for Wisconsin school boards, and it's got several benchmarks and then recommended practices, and like on the one that talks about, that was one of the questions too. The school board has adopted a policy defining the monthly financial reports it requires the administration to produce. Do we have a policy on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then it talks about, the same thing about the actual revenues and expenditures and, monthly check register and stuff but also there's, about the general fund balance, I don't know, we have a policy that states what fund balance is supposed to be or whatever.
State law.
Well, and I think we went with like 22%, but I think there was one in that packet, yes, that we actually went with a 24%.
Vaguely said 15 to 22%.
Yeah.
And then, at the school board meeting, another benchmark, the school board meeting held between October 1st and January 31st, audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, and an accompanying management letter publicly presented to the school board. The auditor will be present at the meeting to discuss findings and address questions. So that gotta be between October 1st and January 31st?
It doesn't have to. So like this year, you'll see on your agenda, they can't make it till February, but it's
Okay.
done.
Well,
It has to be
I just-
done at that time, yeah.
That's
best practice.
If we're supposed to meet,
Yeah, we got that. I mean, I think you guys have it. Every year that I've been here, we've had one.
I remember the guy coming last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Last
but I
couple of
thought-
years. This year it'll be a different company this year. It's Kerber Rose, because that guy dumped a bunch of districts.
Yeah, I know it came last year, but I
In
didn't
all
know,
years.
because they have dates, they said, I didn't know that was
Oh, yeah.
my question. And then I was gonna need a Wayne here, cause, it says benchmark, the treasurer of each school board, or another member, it isn't named by the school board,
Don't scare him off of that
complete school
position.
finance 101, so I think we got that covered. Didn't you finish finance 101 there,
Oh, yeah,
last week?
yeah, actually.
So, anyway.
But you're coming next year.
Jim, are you still having problems getting stuff printed off?
That was down there.
That down there, and I haven't had time, because I've got that, and I've been working crazy.
Because there were some things that I wanted to get the notes from
Yeah.
classes that I couldn't attend. And
Oh.
I checked into that and they should be coming up next Monday.
Yeah, they usually.
It's usually about a
2
week
weeks
delay,
Right.
yeah.
One thing I will note that while I was looking through this new Finance 101, they've never done more than, they've done the sessions of every 45 minutes long or whatever, but they've never done a
3 hours.
morning
Yeah, but I mean,
seminar.
I took that finance and budgeting one a couple of years ago on Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, maybe,
Yeah.
I haven't been there, but
Yeah.
when I was going, there was never any of those fun.
That
things
was like,
that.
Yeah, it could have gone all day.
Way
easily
over that.
for
There's
several
several of those
topics.
sections.
Yeah.
You know, some of those, and we've said it for years, is you go into one of them thinking you're gonna learn a whole bunch of things, and it's just a sales pitch for their stuff.
Mhm.
But every once in a while, you get into a session like that. I like the ones with the legislative updates most of the time, because those are mostly a very long, lengthy discussion too. And John Forrester used to suck the, what was his term? He used to suck the wind out of the room, I think, is what his term was. So.
And one last one, I'll just pass around, you guys can look at it. It was the 21st Century School Board, maximizing your influence. It ended up, your leadership voice, and then you got 5 different leadership voices here that they went through of what board members, and all board members are different, some maybe a couple of them or whatever, but it's kind of interesting afterwards on the different ones and what,
And the finance 101 and the legislative updates, I think those are, should make it a point somebody go every year, because those are both topics that change, there's constant change.
And don't forget, for a nominal fee, because we're WASB members, we can have them come up once a year. And not to a regular board meeting, to one of those, and have some chili and potluck dinner and pizza and. Pizza, we'll get pizza. Pizza from bowling alley and have them present for 2 hours, and we can tell them to present on anything we want, so. It's not, I mean, you do have to buy that, but it's not horrible, so, be good.
well, maybe that's on this data thing,
Sure.
possibly because the 2 ladies were from CISA, and one used to be in CISA 5, but she's down in, I don't know, southwest Wisconsin, but she said CISA 5 should have something like that.
Probably. Cool.
Cool.
Alright, thanks, Jim.
Cindy, is there something you need?
No. Okay, I'm just done with basketball, so I popped in.
Okay, alright, just wanna check. Moving on to the policy committee, we met the 20th, right before convention. We got a packet from Neola of federal updates that, if we didn't have Neola, we would have been so screwed if we got called on any of this federal stuff. It's
And
pretty,
obviously, it's all changed as of.
in the last 6 months, yeah.
And it'll keep
Yeah.
changing this afternoon.
And now it's changed again, so, yeah, this packet basically has all to do with administering federal grants and bookkeeping requirements and tedious amounts of paperwork for somebody, so. But now we're up to date.
Well, this will be your first reading,
This is our
so
first
you
reading.
guys can take those packets home, read them over word for word. There'll be a second reading next month.
It will put you to sleep.
And then at second reading and approval will be next month, so that'll be under your action items, will be the second reading and approval next month. Okay.
All right, moving on, district administrators report.
Okay, where am I? Just real briefly, food service adjustments, I just wanted you guys to know, Wayne and I talked about it a little bit. So I wanted just to let the whole board know you approved the, resignation or retirement of Ann Lebucky, who's been our food service secretary and served in many other positions. Paula and Nathan have picked up some reports and even more work and more leadership, and they're
Thank
both
you.
doing an amazing job. And for a lot of the district, the direct certification and free and reduced lunch stuff, actually Janine Schwartzman has reached out to me. She's kind of asked for more work, and that's not to say she's underworked. She's a busy person, but she served in a position where she had a lot of data entry. She, with Walmart for 30 years, she was in a very high managerial position, providing training for staff and keeping data. So when I reached out to her with, hey, could you take on some of this? She lapped it up and has already met with the USDA, met with the DPI, gone through several trainings. She and her daughter Amber are going through them together, so there's some cross training. So in case somebody's sick, we won't be, or somebody's out for a time, but she's done an amazing job. Just today, Jody was telling me there's actually a sheet where in the past we used seven sheets to do this one thing, and now it's all right there on one sheet. So one Skyward report. So there's been even some, because whenever you start something over again, it's almost always more efficient because you don't do it the way you did it 17 years ago. You do it the best way you can find now, and normally that's more efficient. Just wanted to let you guys know that for now, for this year, we'll be okay, but we'll revisit that. I'll revisit that with Ms. Lauer, predominantly late in the spring, and we'll see where we're at and what we need to do for next year. January counts and enrollment, I actually have them on my desk, but I think I have them memorized, as is the case in almost all of the last 7 years, as far back as I could go. Our January count, I don't know why this is. I asked some other superintendents, and I have a CWC meeting tomorrow, and it's on the agenda. Why is our January count always lower than our September count? It should be that some years it's higher, some years it's lower. It seems like ours, at least, and in former districts that I've worked in, it's always drops. But if ours is always dropping, somebody should be going up. So we dropped from about 612 to 591, a loss of about 20 pupils, which is a bummer if that continues into September. But last year we dropped from 609 to 589, so we had almost the same drop. Again, it could be a bummer. 10 of those are from our open enrollment outs. So remember, those are our butts and seats. We get to count them as butts in our seats because even though they open enrolled, they live in our district. What happened with many of them is they were open enrolled out in September because their family knew that they were moving to Plover in the next couple months because of dad's new job. Family knew they were looking for a place in Watoma, so they open enrolled their kids into Watoma and since have made that move that they knew they were going to do. So 10 of those 20 were open enrollments outs, but I sat here with Amber and Jody, I talked with the principals, and it literally every class was 1 or 2 kids. Now of the 2 kids, one was an open enrollment out, one was a butt in the seat, but it was, this morning we were talking about 2 moved back to Guatemala, Nicaragua. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, that is good. So a lot of just moving out. It's explicable, but it's a bummer. And I'm hoping, just like every other year, our September count will bump back up to that. Somewhere above 6 would be really nice.
Seemed to be, used to be migrants were a big factor, but now it isn't so much anymore.
No, because we don't have.
We
We have like 3 to 5. Yeah.
Like,
We have 3,
yep,
no, 4 boys.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
There was a migrant that was here, and I think they're coming back.
Texas,
And I think
and then they were supposedly gonna come back in April.
Yeah. And they're not, Sandra's explanation is not as many of them by far are migrants anymore.
No.
That doesn't mean they're not transitory. So they don't count in that status, which kind of is a bummer for us too, but they're still got, you know, the cousins in Texas that they'll move back with and then they'll come back, you know, but
A lot of the workforce that used to be families, anything,
now just men.
little kids, all the way up to grandparents, great-grandparents, are now H2A workers that are very specific age groups, and they're mostly all men. So that in itself is a major portion of what used to be a much more transient population that we don't have anymore. However, that doesn't really explain the 20 kids that just vaporize and,
Right.
and nobody else seems to pick them up.
Well, right, that is weird. I'm gonna look back and do some more research on that because that's weird to me.
What date is it that it's done in January?
January 9th. It's the second Friday. So it depends on.
So those early graduates are
They count.
still,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
if they're here.
Yeah, they're here.
No, I mean, if they're here that day.
They are here on both dates. Yes.
If they're not in the building, you've got a certain amount of time to
Yeah.
Find
to
them.
Get them here.
define them, yes,
Yeah.
but the ones that are graduating wouldn't graduate until the end of the semester in
January 20th.
20th-ish.
Yeah. Depends on the year.
Correct.
All right, last thing on my report. Well, 2 more things. One that just has come up since. We have board election. Just it's an unusual thing for this district, but you do have a primary. I want everyone to understand that you can have no more, once you have twice the number of potential seats, and because this school district, Wayne's talked about this, because the school district says there has to be 3 reps from each of the 3 municipal areas, the area of Town of Hancock, Village of Hancock, Town of Deerfield, Town of Colburn, that area has 3 people running for the seat that has been vacated by Mr. Miller. That 3 is more than double the 1 seat open, so 3 is more than 2. We have to have a primary to narrow it down to 2. Primary on February 18th will be to vote for your top 2 choices of those 3 possible choices. The 3 people running are Dakota Smiley, whom I think you know all these people, parent and former board member Wayne Hutchinson, longtime resident of Hancock, and Lisa LaRoque Williams, who's kind of a newer face, but I think we know her as well. So 3 great people running for the board. You will be voting for the top 2 of those 3. That's confusing sometimes to people in the primary. And if X gets 400 votes, Y gets 200, and Z gets 100, 400 votes isn't automatically your board member. So now you have to vote again in April between those 2. The only other confusing thing, I know you guys know this, but I like to say it publicly, and if anybody does watch this video one day, every municipality, all 14 municipalities, both in the northern region, the central region, and the southern region in question, everybody will vote for their top 2 of those 3 candidates that they'd like to see on the ballot in April.
Can I make a request?
Sure.
Can we get?
We will post all this on Facebook and on the website.
Can we get something either on the website or have a public meeting that we can meet these?
So typically, that's a great idea. So typically what I'd like to do and what we've done, and so that's a good reminder, is at least kind of maybe the Argus would be willing to do this with us. Interview each of the 3 candidates. So the Argus can interview them, let them answer questions. I can only put out I can put a link to the Argus's article, but I have to put out very descriptors like I just did.
Sure.
These people are running. Here's a little bit that we might all know about them, and here's information about what you're going to do on February 18th.
You can't ask them to give a short paragraph?
I shouldn't, but Catherine can.
Okay.
And then I can put a link to Catherine's article. So if Catherine and I, maybe we'll talk Thursday or tomorrow morning, and maybe we'll set something up where we can even send them questions, because it's hard to get everyone to come in. And then Catherine can put that together for the Argus, and I can link to
Even
it.
if it's
Can't-
written.
Can't you also put it on our live feed or whatever? Or
I could put a link to the Argus's article, yep. And information about voting, but anything you all own has to be very clean. The Argus can print whatever they want. Does that make sense?
I didn't know if you could send.
Catherine gets
I
it.
didn't know if you could send a basic questionnaire for each of the 3 candidates that
Yeah.
they could respond to, that you could then put on, which would basically be what you.
That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't, and we shouldn't,
We shouldn't as a board.
right, have that.
but when people have them at the schools, who puts that on? When they
Have-
want to interview, or I mean,
We did it
give-
in the past as a
We
PTA.
had a.
Oh,
we
PTA
had
did it. Sure.
That was
Candidate forum.
Which would be
years
wonderful.
ago.
That was through the PTA. because
Yes.
it's what
And
they
those
do.
are always run by the local paper, the PTA, but it just can't be. We'll get it. It's a great suggestion. We'll get it done.
Those of us sitting at this table, and I think pretty much everybody in the room, already know
Yes, but
at least 2 of them, if not all of them.
Facebook world doesn't, and Argus world doesn't, and we need to get that out there. Yeah, good idea. And when you're not in this meeting, you guys can have whatever opinions you want, but right now, we don't have any. Okay, good idea. Oh, and then finally, and I do also want to people get confused about the primary versus regular, and I'm voting for 2
Which is February 18th.
very soon,
Correct.
which is why I want to get, even if
Before
all
our
I,
next board meeting.
yeah, even if, I just want to get that out at the very least. I can do that if you
can't
just.
that go on our website?
Yes, that I can get out on the website
So
tomorrow.
that people at least know?
Yes,
Right.
yep. I just wanted to talk about that tonight first here, and then I already plan on getting that general information out, so, but I just can't do the specifics. Finally, since it came up more recently, and I see that I'm going a little bit longer than I intended, but, you may have heard talk about, repeals on, and this is true, there have been, through executive order at the federal level, there have been repeals of when when immigration officials can do their work to collect, to work on what may or may not be illegal immigration situations. There have been reports out there that they're going to be able to come into schools and take kids out of schools. That is not the case at Tri-County School District. Our policies are clearly in place, that we do not allow anybody into our schools unless they have permission from me or the principals. For an ICE officer to enter our schools, they would not only need to have a request and a warrant, they'd have to have a warrant signed by a judge that specifically says, I, Judge so-and-so, give permission for this officer so-and-so to enter your school district to perform the following activity. So in talking with our lawyer for free, not our lawyer yet, but hopefully someday our lawyer, he said there's nothing to worry about at this time. Things could change in the future, but I just wanted you guys to know that. I emailed the principals, Sandra Villarreal, some other our school counselors, and said, are there any parents, should I put something out there? Are parents worried? Because I want to make sure they know their kids are safe. And every answer, the most important ones, quite honestly, I said this principal, Sandra Villarreal's answer was no. Nobody's worried at all. She's very in touch with our Latino Hispanic community. And she implied basically there's nothing to worry about. So if you send out a big email now, you might create more of a stir than was there. But if a stir starts rising, I'll send out the email.
Till they see the ice truck going around town.
Well, then the email will go out. But anyway, that's it for my report.
Okay, Kyla can't be with us tonight, but Mr. Marty said he would cover some.
Do my best.
Yep. Go for it.
Right, so, things that we had down under her, she was a member of our practical law mock trial, which took place on the last day of semester 1, Friday the 17th. Judge Dutcher came in like he does every year. Mr. Dassler's group really did a good job. He had some supporting cast from other classes that came in and helped as well. And it sounds like we got some like prospective lawyers in this building, like took it pretty seriously, and they got into it pretty good. I believe it was like a domestic murder type of a charge, like where I think the wife may have killed her husband, something like that. It sounded as though it was, I don't know who gets the win on this, but the person was found guilty but had a lesser charge. So I think they felt as though the defendants did well as the plaintiffs kind of got, what they were trying to accomplish. So that was cool. It was a good day. Winterfest week is going to be 2 weeks from now, February 10th through 15th. So that'll be very similar, I think, to past traditions. Ms. Knutson is back full time now and working with our student council. Our daddy-daughter dance, which has been something that they've gotten going and done a number of years now, is going to be on Saturday the 15th, and the school and cafeteria area is pretty packed for that. So that's a really cool night. On the co-curricular side, winter sports are it is like full blast right now for all of them. I wanted to just comment, I mean, we had some contests going on tonight as well, but regionals, when you look at the sports, the wrestling ones always get going a little bit earlier. The 15th of February is the wrestling regional. And then if you advance on, obviously it's like it's on the weekend, every weekend after that to go to sectionals at state. Girls basketball, the initial regional is the week of February 25th, and those contests would continue that week. Boys are the following week, the week of March 4th, and those would continue successfully. So that's what's happening there. Quiz Bowl. We are going to be starting up tomorrow. Will be week 6 of the Quiz Bowl season in the CWC. Mr. Bungie is in his 2nd year here working with our kids. We got a really good group of kids. Pretty full. I feel like our rosters are maxed out, or at least at like 9 or so. You get them up to 10 kids on each roster. Our B team right now, which is your underclassmen, your younger group in general, they're 1-4. The A team is I think they're on a 2-game winning streak. They're 2-3 right now, and we were home the last 2 weeks. I can't remember if we're home tomorrow or this week, or if they're traveling this week.
Traveling.
Traveling
Okay,
tomorrow.
so they're away. Okay, so and I think it's Thursday. I think it's moved. I think he said.
Oh.
But anyway, tomorrow would be the normal day. But anyway, it's going really, really well. Math leagues, yeah, it is. It's Thursday because this is the quiz, or this is the math league week. That's why. Meet number 2 is tomorrow at UWSP. So we got our contingency of kids going up there with Mr. Ponis. Mr. Zelmer talked about the FBLA regional going on this Saturday, so that's a whole new big again, organization in our school. It's been a great addition. Kids are excited about it. Mr. Sommer's got a lot of background with that, so that's awesome. And NHS, their trip will be taking place middle of March. We'll have our February meeting before that, but that's the 13th and 14th of March. So there's some of those big events going on. If I flip it over to my side, our annual, I don't know if there'll be skiing or snow skiing or not. 1 week it's tropical and 1 week it's 20 below zero. So you just don't know.
I did get notification from Mr. Burgoyne today that, that was happening on the 7th, so if there is snow, the trail will be groomed and well taken care
I
of.
feel like last year it was pretty melted and stuff, but we just had the bonfire, just kind of hung out and had a good time. So anyway, that's gonna be February 7th. Then later on that day, because it won't be grand enough, we are gonna have this year's version of the TC Middle School lock-in. It'll be our 3rd year of doing that. So that's gonna be really fun. Miss Rader and Miss Bouchard are heading that up as far as planning goes. We got a lot of staff that are gonna be helping out with it. There's going to be various things going on, including we're gonna get Rocky's Pizza for them. There's gonna be a movie. They're going to go to the basketball game that night at 7 o'clock, I think, and then we're gonna wrap it up with some hide and seek on the non-basketball side of the school, which is always fun. And that's like all the kids, they would like to just do 7 hours of hide and seek. That's not gonna happen. So, maybe one. Parent-teacher conferences are on the 20th. I didn't put this on there. I did mention it though before that we're gonna do, so the day of the 20th, we're gonna do that, what do we wanna call it, like course options fair, and I discussed it a month or two ago with the board, where we're gonna use our kind of our content areas that to give our 8th, 9th, and 10th graders a chance to go around and rotate and hear from teachers about courses that they offer, more specifically than just getting the catalog and kind of reading the little blip, and then hopefully using our seniors, divvying up our seniors who don't have to worry about doing this, and letting them be like a panel in each of these different rooms and kind of just give their thoughts and share some of their insight on these different things. So that's going to happen that day. The chili supper is going to be that night, and this is going to be kind of fun. So we've got I coordinated with the Bucks. Kind of his last year was wrapping up, and where the FBLA program is partnering or is going to be taking their kids that are able and interested. We're going to go to the Bucks versus Clippers game that evening in Milwaukee, which works good because the day after is an in-service day, so the kids can get home at 1 in the morning and not have to worry about turning back around first thing in the morning. Unfortunately, we will need to do that, but that's okay. So yeah, I think that's about, it's kind of the things coming up in the imminent future here, and hopefully I'll have some good news about all that stuff next month.
Cool. Any questions? All right, Ms. Love.
Mr. Marty asked me to be brief, but I have quite a few things to present. This is the famous report that I always blow up to supersize so that you can see the fine print. This is our AGR report. Just as a reminder, AGR stands for Achievement Gap Reduction. So it's taking a look at those kind of high poverty students, and we're getting aid sent to our district based upon the number of students we happen to qualify for free and reduced lunch. With those funds, we have 3 different options for what we can spend it on. We can spend it on teachers to keep our class sizes 18 to 1 or lower, grades K through 3. We can also use it to get coaches who have a 317 license to come in and work with our staff, or additionally using an interventionist to provide one-to-one instruction for students. We do have quite a few students in our RTI process at this point, so the groups are a lot bigger than one-on-one intervention, but we do kind of use a mix of those 3 different strategies throughout our contract time, which takes us across the year. Primarily, though, it's the class size reduction. Talking about actually what Mr. Knudsen said, looking at a deep dive on data and making what we have for our data work for us and be more effective to help us plan as we're looking to kind of align our goals for students with what we're gonna see our outcomes be on a board exam. For our achievement gap reduction report, we've historically always done 8 out of 10 performance standards, and the teachers have kind of looked at the standards over the years and picked which 10 they kind of feel is a broad scope. Unfortunately, as I was kind of looking back through what these reports have kind of shown us from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, the last few years, using those 8 out of 10 performance objectives don't give us quite a broad enough approach to exactly see what standards we really need to be working on. So for this year, I took that AGR data just to kind of compare where we were going to be versus our STAR scores, which give us a more accurate number related to all of the standards. So I took those two numbers and picked the one that I felt was more accurate, which for all of them ended up being the STAR score. And also for kindergarten, we still did the performance objectives for the 8 out of 10 because the early literacy STAR exam that they take as our screener, it doesn't give us all the pertinent information, and the teachers would agree that even on the math for the STAR early learning score, there's really only like 5 or 6 math questions that end up trying to feed to kind of what we're looking at. So we kept kindergartens kind of how it was. So if we look at that last kind of second to last column for our fall semester, currently we have 33% of kindergarten students in regular education on track for meeting 8 out of 10 performance objectives in reading. Now remember, we're doing a lot of work in the area of reading. Act 20 is very busy. Don't get scared about that 33%. Kindergartners are just learning how to read. And so some of those performance objectives are really kind of actually reading, understanding CVC words, which are like bat, cat, and being able to speak to those with their teachers in various test formats. So look at that 33%, but know that the end result is going to be where we want to see that higher number. For our math, 50% of kindergarten students in regular education are on track to meet those 8 out of 10 performance objectives. And again, right there, it would have been a little bit higher, but there's 3 or 4 of those performance objectives that talk about addition and subtraction, and those are just the units that the teachers are getting into right now. So mid-year, you're not going to see exactly the same kind of results as you do at the end for that kindergarten level. So then jumping into first grade through third grade. First grade, this is now we're using our STAR scores to be a more accurate representation of where we're currently at. And currently we have 61% of first grade students in regular education on track for meeting or exceeding grade level proficiency in reading. Again, the state, when we look at the Ford exam, it looks at growth and proficiency. For AGR, this is your achievement gap reduction, so you are focused on just that achievement component, not growth. You're focused on just achievement. So where we're at for our first grade math then is at 75% of first grade students. Something interesting to note, that number is really great. We're looking at growth as well for our students on different reports that I'm pulling and working with the teachers on. But that 75, that this group of students is the first group of students that had our new math curriculum, both last year and this year. So that 75%, hopefully we can see that continue with the use of Into Math. Currently we have 70% of second grade students in regular education on track for meeting or exceeding grade level proficiency in reading. So that's great. Currently, we have 43% of students in regular education on track for meeting or exceeding grade level proficiency in math. Then jumping down to third grade, they ended up with exactly the same, a split of 15 out of 32 students, which is 47%, meeting or exceeding proficiency for both reading and mathematics at the third grade level. Now, another update to keep in mind is the state standards, performance standards specifically have changed. The 2020 there was an update, and then there was another update that's just now coming into all of our assessment feeds, like the Ford exam feed, which is why they tell us we can't compare years, as well as in our actual standards that pop up for us within the STAR program. They're now all updated to the current state standards. So as standards change, this is going to make it more likely for us to be able to adjust in real time to like where our students need to get, because now our standards have been updated to match. So with that, we obviously will keep planning and looking for the future of where we're going to get to in the spring. We have meetings that don't just talk about the AGR. Obviously, we talk about growth. As we know, our growth score on the Ford exam was our low area. Our achievement was actually just under the state average for both reading and for math. So unfortunately, growth is weighted higher for our tiny town than achievement. So it's just kind of how those numbers fell this year. So that's one area where we're really focused on, not just the achievement this year, but really looking at how the students are growing in each of the areas. And that kind of brings us to the word on the street, which is Act 20. This plan appears on our website. It has to be posted on our website. This is the early literacy remediation plan. So Act 20 was a law passed as part of the 21-23 state budget, kind of in those years, and it focuses on enhancing literacy instruction with the support of early learning for students K through 3, and they do a little bit of testing in 4K as well. Part of this is providing teachers with the knowledge that they need, so that's when a couple years ago we got that grant to send our teachers to letters training. We jumped on that boat early, which was awesome. We have almost all of our teachers K-3, well, and Mr. Tao will be trained as well this summer. But we'll have all of our teachers K through 3 trained, and then we do have a couple people that are interested in doing the Volume 2 training. Currently, Volume 2 kind of takes what you learned in the Letters 1 training for earlier students, and it bridges it up to something more appropriate for 3rd through 5th grade. And Cindy Royer is currently attending the Volume 2 to kind of figure out who it would make sense to send for that next portion of the training, so that if we have money left over from that grant, we can use it to our best ability. Act 20 also requires our schools to use high quality evidence-based curriculum for reading that emphasizes phonics and other foundational skills. If you actually open up the live document on our website, on this second page where it talks about universal instruction, this is the instruction that all of our students get. So this is where you're going to see specific information on our Wonders curriculum, and the scope and sequence and the Ed Report ratings for how that aligns to the science of reading. You'll also see kind of the newly updated language arts standards and then the elements for English language arts. And that was the 2022, end of 2022, when they kind of revised that. For our families, what this means is their students K through 3 are going to be tested using AIMSweb. The state picked AIMSweb. We didn't have any choice in the matter. We maybe have opinions that we might not have picked it. All of our grade levels have gone through. They made it through, most of them with a smile on their face, realizing it's new, it's going to be a challenge when we first do it, it's not going to be perfect. We're going to provide feedback to CISA, we're going to provide feedback to AIMSweb Plus, and hopefully things get a little bit better. But basically, for our kindergarten students, they take a series of tests, but the only 2 that end up counting for whether they test in the 25th percentile or lower ends up being letter naming fluency and letter word sound fluency. So when I get to our scores of how many kids we had in each grade level that qualified for a reading plan, anybody below the 25th percentile, we'll talk about why that's a big deal. 1st through 3rd grade, they also take a series of tests, but the only one that counts for if they fall below the 25th percentile is the ORF, which is oral reading fluency. So it's really how fast in a minute you can get through. If you've ever tried to read fast, or if you've ever tried to be on the spot to say things fast, as we all know, that's kind of a nail biter. And for kids just taking this for the first time, you also aren't able to tell them go as fast as you can, or say as many letters as you can, say as many words as you can, say as many sentences as you can. So the more that they take this test, which they'll take it again at the end of the year, and the kids that are going to be in the reading plan portion, their progress monitoring that is done weekly has them timed. So they'll understand that you have to do it quicker, and we'll likely see a huge drop in these numbers of kids that tested into 25th percentile and lower. So this plan, it has a lot of different things in it. We sent out a letter to the parents back at the beginning part of December, and we also there was a blurb that we sent out at the beginning of the year explaining Act 20 was coming. Usually this testing is all done in the fall, but because the DPI didn't get everything met on their end of the timelines, they had school districts start it in the winter, which is not actually, it didn't really align with where our other testing dates were, so we had to do a little bit of adjusting. But a big thank you to our paraprofessionals, Mrs. Pianki, Mrs. Phillips, Mrs. Villarreal, Mrs. Zavala, Ms. Banda, and especially our classroom teachers as well. They all kind of adjusted, and our paraprofessionals were able to step into the classrooms and do some fun activities for the day, while the teachers were able to be freed up to give assessments. And they really all rallied together. We sat down, we looked at our data, we did a lot of the plan writing together. And so those things are going out. So what we're seeing statewide, everybody has to have this plan in place. It's posted on our website. Kind of moving on to our scores, transitioning there. So our kindergarten students, and what you'll notice is because it's about going faster, as the kids get older, they can read more fluently naturally, so the numbers go down every year. So in kindergarten, we had 40 out of 45, so that's 88% of our students testing below the 25th percentile and lower on naming their letters at a strategic and quick pace, or their sounds at a strategic and quick pace. There's additional tests that you then give after you give this one first. So STAR, our regular diagnostic screener, would fall after this. That would give us some more information because then we can look at, well, they know all their letters. They just can't say them quickly, which then it's a fluency issue. And so we make a plan for fluency and having them practice saying them out loud, just like you do anyway with kindergartners throughout the year. Or is it a letter word sound issue where some of them don't know their letter sounds yet, or some of them don't know their letters yet, and in that case, that's what their plan becomes, that they're working on their letter sounds, and again, being able to say them fluently. So 88% seems like a lot. All the districts across the state are kind of up in arms over the templates that we have for parent surveys, the templates that we have for how we report have to be very similar and almost scripted, so we kind of all have to use the same ones that we're given to make sure we meet the state requirements. So we're getting kind of like, they're clunky or they're asking kind of weird information. I'm sure those will get better over time. We're just using the first iteration the state is giving us, as well as the testing. If you go back historically in time, AimsWeb had always had these testings as part of their Pearson platform. You could always use these different testing components. The tests themselves are not new, but when the state adopted that we're all going to use AimsWeb testing, the cut scores changed and actually went up. So if we would have given this same test 2 years ago, our students, we wouldn't have had as many students qualify. There's a lot of talk in the state about why they changed the cut scores. Because as you have the amount of students that qualify for these plans, there's additional testing components you can buy, additional options they can sell you. So if you can read between my lines, we're hoping that's not the case, but that's why so many districts are kind of joining together to ask those questions of AimsWeb, and we're right with CISA on those questioning pieces as well. First grade, we had 20 out of 31, so we dropped from 88% down to 64%. So still 64% of our students, over half, in need of these reading plans. Second grade, we drop a big chunk again, so now we have 14 out of 34 students, that's 41%. So just under half of the students needing reading plans. And then as we get to third grade, we had about 12 out of 37 that end up being in need of reading plans because they fall just only on the one test of the oral reading fluency below the 25th percentile, and that's at 32%. We are going to do some additional testing for our kindergarten students just to see if it's a rapid naming issue. So there's an additional test we can give that has them naming objects and colors and other things at a quick pace, just so we can see if it is truly a fluency issue or if they just don't know the letters yet. But as we look towards doing that, we've met kind of all the requirements that we need to up to this point. We're sitting pretty good with Act 20. We've sent out the score reports, which have to be sent out within 15 days of testing. All of our grade levels have those kind of sent out, and now we're working on finishing up the plans. Those will go out to parents as well, and it basically just says that your child tested below the 25th percentile. This is why, this is their score, and then when we have them for those 30-minute RTI blocks, your child will be working on fluency. So that means they'll be reading out loud, or they'll be practicing words out loud, or saying them as many as they can in a minute on their Fridays when they do their progress monitoring. It does state we need to do progress monitoring once per week, so that'll give us kind of a trend line to see where the data is going and make sure it's going up. By the time we get to the end of the year, we give this again. The kids will have so much practice saying these things over and over with a minute timer that we're probably going to see a big drop in these percentages. So hang tight with us. I told our teachers, I said, change is always hard. This isn't anybody's fault that we're having to go through it. Sometimes change stinks, but we can't sit in the stink. We gotta just do it, and we'll support each other, and everybody's had a really good attitude about it. So I'm very, very proud of our teaching staff for just digging in and doing what they need to do to get it done, to be the best we can be for our kids. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Coming further with Act 20, we are gonna have some policies that our district has to come up with before, kind of the tail end of the year. We're gonna need to look at a retention policy for 3rd grade and then update our 4th grade retention policy. The state does kind of look like they're going to be moving back to the idea of retaining kids or having a larger group of kids possibly be on the line to be retained. But one thing that you are supposed to strongly encourage is having those students attend intervention during the summer. So we're gonna really have a more robust summer school program that we're trying to have with remedial options for the students that have the reading plans. So that we do not see the retention rates spike through the roof, because we do know that our students can do it. But 3rd and 4th grade is a really hard year to kind of make that swift change between can you do it fluently or can you not. So with that being said, you'll see some of that happening, but like I said, some school districts are already kind of joining together and saying the same things. Is there any question on the reading plan? I didn't ask for questions on the AGR, so questions on either one. I apologize.
Go ahead. When you, when these kids test and they're testing really low, you're saying they're going to be in like RTI or whatever. Is that one-on-one?
So, no. So right now you have tiers of instruction. So everybody is in tier 1. Tier 1 is like universal instruction. Everybody gets Heggerty, where you talk about you talk about the sounds. Everybody gets that. Everybody gets Wonders, which is our universal curriculum where you anchor text and you do read alouds and you do your grammar and you do your other things. We also have Wiley Blevins, which is our phonemic awareness that we're using as a supplement. So all of those are components that everybody gets. Then you have everybody gets a win time. So there's 30 minutes already scheduled into our day. We have our highest students going with some paraprofessionals so that they can be reading out loud, working on some graphic organizers, working on novel studies, because they're ready to be pushed, right? That's part of our growth. Our growth wasn't moving for our highest achieving students, so what do we do to fix it? We need to get them reading. Because what happens sometimes, because teachers are busy and they're human, is you're looking at a class full of 15 kids and you know that these are your lowest and they don't know what they need to know and you're struggling. So you focus your time on them while you have Jimmy and Angie sitting over in the corner who are the superstars of the class, and you're like, I don't need to worry about you right now, you're doing great, just kind of keep reading over there. And their scores don't go up. As well as we're looking at everybody's growth, we need to focus on those kids' growth as well, because if you're achieving at a high rate, we want to keep you growing at a fast rate too. So now we have our paraprofessionals in place because those kids can keep moving, and the teachers as well as our interventionists is helping kind of plan what are some good things for that higher achieving group to be doing during that 30 minutes, which then breaks up smaller groups for the teachers. So our interventionist takes usually 10 percentile and lower. So our highest need students, she usually has a group of about 4. Sometimes she divides up 2 different time slots in the day. If she can make it work, everybody gets the same 30-minute block, but sometimes there's a little bit too many kids or they have a different need at that lowest level. So she provides them with tier 3 intervention, which is a smaller group and more intense. And that is something we've always had in place. Tier 3 with an interventionist. Since I got here, we hired an interventionist. That's always been. So that's for the lowest performing students academically. This plan is kind of what to do with the rest of the kids that need kind of that tier 2. So they need something, they need a little more practice. And most of the time they just need more practice reading out loud, or they just need more practice looking through how to blend some letters together, or how to learn, how to decode and encode. So once the teachers figure out what they need, then we have broken up the plan. So Lisa might have the group that's working on fluency, and she might have two kids that really need to go into a group that are working on encoding. So rather than having Lisa have to have 3 different groups, one fluency, one high group, and one other group, we've strategically kind of figured out Lisa will take this group, Tina Schrader will take this group, looking at this specific skill, and usually those groups are about 4 or 5 students, 6 usually I think at most, but 4 or 5 students. So all the teachers at the grade level divide those kids up, and then we use our paraprofessionals as well. So the group sizes are about 4 or 5.
53% of the kids in 3rd grade that,
But that's below the 25th percentile. So imagine 5. So
that's a
imagine,
lot of them.
it's a lot of them. Yep, it's a lot. But also remember, this is only one test, and it's only focused on fluency. So we can say across the board, if we have this many kids that are testing into below 25th percentile for fluency, our kids need to be reading out loud more, our kids need to be choral reading, our kids need to be partner reading, in order to kind of get more fluent. It doesn't mean that it's that many kids overall, proficiency-wise, it's just on this one test. And why they picked fluency, oral reading fluency, Lisa, why did they pick it?
I don't know. But I have 2 students in my class, and they didn't make very many errors at all. But they just didn't get enough words read.
Yep.
So I don't really believe they have significant reading problems. But because of this one test,
Yes.
they now have a reading plan.
Yep.
And I just wanted to speak to the grouping, if that's okay, if you care.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Up to her. She doesn't care.
It's only 9:12. So yes, our paraprofessionals, Mrs. Pianki, Mrs. Phillips, they're taking our highest readers, and the kids are loving reading novels, using graphic organizers, like Brittany said. Tina Schrader is taking our fluency group, the group that needed the reading plan, but were not our lowest readers that need the interventionist. And so she is focusing her daily lessons on just that fluency.
but how
Okay,
many kids does she have?
4, and they all need that skill because they tested low on the oral reading fluency, but it wasn't because of accuracy.
Yep.
They were reading enough words correctly. They just didn't read enough words. They were just a little slower. So she's solely focused on that reading out loud and trying to pick up that speed of reading, the rate of reading. I have a group of only 3 students actually, because they didn't need a reading plan, but they were like that next group that, yeah, they didn't quite qualify for the reading plan, which is great, but we see in their daily work that they also need some reading fluency, but they weren't quite low enough to work in that fluency group. So I'm working with them. And then our next group of readers are working with Mara Wolf.
Yep.
And so we sat down, and it took a long time, but we sat down, we looked at each individual child and looked at where did they need help and what other students need that same exact skill.
Yep.
And then we grouped them that way. And so every day for 30 minutes, they are going and getting what they need. And then our highest readers are getting that. They have to read harder books, novels, and Cheryl and Melissa are like, they're fabulous. They know what they're doing. So we know we can send those kids and they're not just sitting on a computer.
And this is new this year.
Well, we started,
This much of
so
it.
Lisa's group, we started in 2 different grade levels, kind of trying to like pilot the idea to get everybody what they need of dividing them up into groups based on skills, so that just to free up some of their time and get to the kids more, because what we were finding was the kids were not growing fast enough. And you saw that on our forward exam. They're just not growing fast enough. They're achieving, but they're just not moving as quickly as we'd like them to. And when you're a teacher that has to focus on 5 separate groups, that's really hard when you're planning, and it takes a lot of time even to put the planning in that they're putting in now, which I appreciate, and they're doing a great job, but it does take a long time for planning. So we did kind of we started with grouping the kids for kind of literacy levels. We've been doing that since I started, but last year we were really intentional about trying it out to see if it would help if we divided them up even more so. And now the state's telling us, you know, that's kind of what they're following, which it makes sense that we're kind of naturally going that way with our thinking too. But if you look at how many kids, 64% seems like a lot, but that's 20 kids. So you have 3 kindergarten teachers plus an interventionist, that's about 5 kids in each group. Plus you might have another group that has aid support or something like that. Second grade, it's about 14 students. That would be the percentage. Third grade, 12 students. So it's manageable. It feels like a lot of work right now, but it's because it all kind of came right now. And so as we keep practicing, we'll get better at it. But I appreciate you saying that because, yeah, that's exactly spot on of how we're trying to divide them up.
Are you seeing less self-consciousness and
Yeah.
more
Yes.
speed
Yes.
in their
Yes, and so that was
achievement?
one of the other things too. So there was this old adage that you wanted to get away from tracking for so long. Like you wanted the kids to have this knowledge base where they're hearing their peers answer these high intellectual questions. So you didn't want to kind of divide the kids up with these groups that they had to stay in forever. But during these small windows of time, what we are seeing is the kids that always sat in the corner, never raised their hand to read, mumbled when it became their turn, you couldn't even tell if they were reading or not. And even when you worked with small groups, you might have a kid that could read that passage quite easily with another student that couldn't. And it was really hard for the teacher to even hear when you had a small group before, where really are they making the errors? Or how quick do they need to move faster? Do they need to talk about something else? And so the kids themselves too, and what I've noticed as I've been in classrooms, we have this kind of happening for math as well, where we divide the kids up by what they specifically need during math intervention, block 2. And the kids that we never had raising their hand to answer something before, they now know that they're in a group where if they don't know a word, it doesn't matter. Mrs. Rader, Mrs. Ertl, fill it in, we decode it, we move on. Everybody in that group probably didn't know what it was, so it's a benefit to everybody. So yes, we are seeing the kids actually take part more and be more engaged, because you would also have your high students where you're sitting like, twiddling my thumbs because I read it already. I had the paragraph done when my teacher put it on my desk this morning, and now they're going back through it and they're sounding out words, and I'm, looking out the window counting bugs. So it is beneficial for all students at all levels to be able to feel comfortable with peers that are at a similar level being able to share.
Even at the lowest levels,
Yes.
kindergarten,
Yep.
first grade, they're self-conscious about,
Yep.
my friend over here knows more than I
Yep.
do when I don't want to talk as much. And
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're hopeful that it's.
On this, did every kid get tested in every grade, or just the regular education
Okay, so
kids?
this is the other thing. So when we picked when we picked how to do this 5 years ago, it was the year before I started. So at that time, you kind of did 80% of regular education students who are in school for 8 of the 9 months, whatever it was. That's kind of how they had you set up your goals at that point in time. But if you think about it now, if I want 80% of our students in Tri-County to be proficient, and we've talked about this a lot as a staff, and this is what we say, if we want all of our students to be making growth, every single student, so a student in regular ed, a student in special ed, they're all our kids, we're not in silos anymore, we want them all to grow, then we say we want 100% of the students to grow, okay? So 100% across the bar, that's our goal. Post it on the wall, that's what we're committing ourselves to. We want all of them to grow. But then when you look at proficiency rates, you do know that there's going to be a natural percentage. You know the old bell curve where there's some kind of here and some kind of here and some down here. You do know that there's going to be percentage of students that don't quite make that same proficiency. So you say 80% proficiency. But when you add that adage, regular education students, we're going to end up taking that out when we redo our 5-year contract, and that'll be upcoming this next year. We're going to take that out because we have about a 20% rate of students that are in special education. Not all of them are not achieving high. Some of them are in special education for different reasons, or they may have a hard time in reading but not a hard time in math. So when you say 80% of students in regular education, you're kind of already not, you're kind of going from 80% of students to you're saying your district's gonna have like basically then 60 or 70% of students, and that's not what we want. We want 80%. 80% of our students, all of our students. So it's just written that way because that was kind of how it was written in the beginning, but that's one of the areas where we've talked about 80%. 80% of our students can and will, and we want them to, and if we believe it, they'll do it. So we're just sticking to it. And that's kind of one of the things too, when they talk about theories of what really matters. Being able to have teacher efficacy where the teachers believe that the kids can do it and have the students have self-efficacy where they believe that they can do it is one of the highest point ratings for that they can. So we're kind of counting ourselves down by having a goal that's written only for our regular education students. So that's why that'll go away. But our commitment to each other and to our kids is that it's 80% of all of our kids will meet proficiency.
Because we want to see, the board wants to see, the public wants to
Yep.
see these scores go up dramatically.
Yep.
And I believe the board will do anything we can
Yep.
to see that you get that done.
Yep. And our teachers are
So
working
we
really,
need
really
to
hard to
know,
make it happen.
you know,
I struggle with this a little bit because I understand that, you know, that 47% or whatever that number is.
Yep.
You're looking at statistics that base off of a full year's worth of education, and you're looking at it in October, November,
Yeah.
January. So those numbers should go up
It should change
just from,
within a year.
because you're looking at a full year's curriculum in a moment in time.
Lisa.
I'm sorry. Can I? When you look at the AGR, you know, I'm putting in what STAR says they're at. That doesn't necessarily mean that they really are below basic.
Yeah.
I may be putting in below basic on a particular skill for a particular student who's in regular education, whatever.
Yep.
But I don't really think that that child is below basic because that score came from one day and one test.
Yes.
And I think that kind of skews
Yes.
the whole thing too,
Yep.
because I don't think some of those scores, and I think teachers would agree,
Absolutely.
from that one test, that isn't really what we're seeing on a daily basis.
No.
I don't have that many that are below basic in math,
But that's just what.
but
you
it's
want.
just the way STAR scored it, and we've had a couple kids retake tests, and
And
they've done better because we've put them in a room with one person.
Yep.
And it has made a difference with testing. So we're experimenting with that too.
Yep, and the other thing too, that's a good point that Lisa just brought up. I'm sorry, I'm taking a long time, but I really want you guys to have like a full picture of like the things we've been working on. The other thing too that's really, really important to remember is that looking at data, kind of like Jim was talking about with some of the stuff that he saw at the WASB conference, looking at data, like learning how to actually look at your data and try to figure out trends and try to figure out things that you're noticing, specific things about students. We have more teachers now taking apart their data, pulling apart their data after going through it over and over and over for the last 4 years and really, really trying to model what does it look like? What does it mean? And at first when you come in and you're looking at data, like I would say my first year, it's hard for people to look at data and not feel a sense of like, oh crap, I'm doing something wrong. What am I doing wrong? And we had to get over that as a team together, that that's not what it means at all. Data should not be scary. Data should not feel like we're pointing fingers. Data should be, we're all on a team, we're working together. What can we notice about it? How can we move the kids? How can we try to test differently? How can we, what commonalities can we find? And we're kind of finally to a place now where, like Lisa had said the other day, some comment, we laughed hysterically about it in the office one night, about it's hard to admit when like you don't know everything. And we had to get to a place where we were comfortable being able to like, I don't know everything. I just learned something awesome from Cindy Royer. I'm not the expert on blank, but I had somebody in a classroom, TJ Robinson, could tell me, oh, I did a lesson on this and this is how I taught it. And my kids, they just understood. So we've been really trying to like pull at those pieces of everybody is an expert in certain areas and really, really focus our attention on what can we put in place that will lead us in the direction that we want to go. And part of that was getting over the fact that looking at data is not and should not be scary. Being in each other's classrooms, shouldn't be scary. Having your principal kind of in your classrooms or providing feedback, I'm not necessarily seen as a coach, even though I want to be a coach. They're seeing me as kind of an evaluator. So who can we bring in as coaches? And we've brought in Lorna Laporte for math. We have CISA 5 coaches that are working with our teachers that are coming in and seen as like a more neutral person to give a better perspective. But as we've grown together in the past 4 years since I've been here too, it's amazing the amount of time and effort that I know these teachers put into these kids. And it is really discouraging when we see it doesn't go our way on the state test scores. I dove deep into it the weekend they were unembargoed and I can look at the first time. And you know, it could be as simple for a small school district like us. It can be as simple as we had 7 kids that just didn't really care that day. I mean, that changes our percentage by so much. So, you know, we don't want it to be that one test is our focus. We don't want the community to see this report and think that we're you know, not on a daily basis working our butts off for these kids, because we are, and the kids are smart, and they are just as smart as any other district. Is it fair that the state weights us higher on growth than achievement when our kids are just below the state average for achievement? No, but it is what it is. So we're more focused on what we can look at in the data we're taking all of the time and not the data on the one time. Yes, we're concerned just as much as you are with what we can do, how we can provide testing situations that are best fit for our students, how we can break up our groups, how we can put everything that we've learned from all of these additional professional development opportunities that we've learned into practice, knowing that the old thing I used to say when I would come to board meetings, it doesn't mean that Henry Ford was bad at making cars, but you don't go to a car dealership and ask for windows that you have to crank. It's just that things change over time. Kids change over time. We see that daily. We know that we have kids that come in and they do not have the attention span that they used to. So standing on our head juggling scars with our toes doesn't always work either. So we just keep going. And we want your support to know that we are working hard. We are elbow deep in the scores, but it can be as simple as 7 kids bombing a test. And the thing that communities don't understand is they don't understand that we might be weighted differently than Wild Rose. We might be weighted differently than Wisconsin Rapids or Almond Bancroft. You might be able to take that same calculation and apply the exact same calculation to all these schools and see us higher than them. We don't like our place at the bottom of the state. And if you actually look historically, when I first started, we were the 3rd lowest. Our elementary, I think, was the 3rd lowest in the state. Even with our score dropping this year, we're at like 22 now, even though our score still looks low. So the